Looking back, I realized that it was a turning point. Somebody actually said I did something well. My father's favorite nickname for me was Useless, and I had come to accept this as a fact. Now, somebody actually said I was good at something. So singing became a part of my daily ritual. The guys would gather around the air vent, and I would belt out the blues. By the time I got out of the hole, word had spread all over the joint, and my reputation as a singer was made. Now I wanted to sing every chance I got, but singing a cappella just wouldn't get it. I needed an instrument. In my dorm were 4 Ojibwe kids named Fisher. Now, one of the Fisher boys, Brent, had a guitar with him when he was arrested. It was kept in a locker in the gym, and one afternoon he showed it to me. It was an almost unplayable mail-order K acoustic guitar, a real piece of junk. It only had 5 strings, and they were about an inch off the fretboard. But Brent knew a few chords, and he could play a couple of Johnny Cash tunes. So I asked him to teach me how to play. Prison rules prohibited musical instruments in the dorms. Guitar strings could be a lethal weapon, so I improvised. Aha, a cribbage board. A guy in the carpenter shop planed it down to roughly the shape and dimensions of a guitar neck, and I drew strings and frets on the mock fretboard. I found a guitar instruction book in the library, Mel Bay's 1001 Guitar Chords, and I began to practice. Sitting on my bunk, silently practicing chords that only I could hear. In the gym, however, once a week, I got to borrow Fisher's guitar for a couple of hours so I could actually hear what I'd been practicing. He let me work on the guitar. I ordered some mail-order strings, took the nut off, ground it down on the concrete floor, and reset the neck angle so it was actually playable. That Christmas, I played on a makeshift stage in the gym with a squeaky microphone and my cheap guitar. I played a couple of Jimmy Reed tunes, Peepin' and Hidin' and Big Boss Man. I knew some Robert Johnson, some Lead Belly, and of course, the prison favorite, Johnny Cash. I Walked the Line. I played for nearly an hour and the place went nuts. The guys cheered and clapped and hollered for more, and I was in my glory. I loved every minute of it, and I left the gym that day with a dream. Maybe I could actually do this for a living. Maybe people out on the street would react the same way as the guys in the joint. Maybe I really could be a musician. Maybe I wasn't useless. Now, just so you don't get the idea that everything is dark in prison, it's not. It's not. I met some great people in prison. I met some very smart people in prison. And so I thought I'd defy my publicist buddy back there and kind of throw a couple of things in that throw a light on what it's like in prison and maybe a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek look at what it's like. Because I spent from age 15 to age 21 as a guest of the Ontario and Canadian government in many of their luxury hotels. I've always loved books, and in prison, not only is there plenty of time to read, but escaping into the fantasy world of literature allowed me to be anywhere but where I was. For a few hours each night, I could be in Spain fighting bulls with Hemingway. I could trudge the Dust Bowl highways with John Steinbeck and ride the Mississippi riverboats with Mark Twain. Contrary to the popular image of inmates scratching off their days on a calendar, that's just not how it is. Counting your days makes the time seem interminable. So you put the street out of your mind and you concentrate on life in the joint one day at a time. The hardest time is the last few months of your bit, when the prospect of freedom actually becomes a reality and every day becomes an eternity. Some guys actually go over the wall with only a few days left in their sentence. They just can't take the waiting. And the prospect of life outside the structured environment of the joint is terrifying for them. I was in real danger of being institutionalized at this point. Life on the street was hard, and I had it pretty good in jail. On the street, I was a broke, homeless kid. But in the joint, I had a certain status. Believe it or not, there are guys who are so successful in jail and such a failure on the street that they deliberately keep coming back. They are institutionalized. Now, the only thing I couldn't get in jail was sex. Got your attention with that, didn't I? And at 18 years old, my hormones were running wild. Some of the wheels kept kids, quote unquote, young gay inmates who could be used for sex. They were pampered and protected by a wheel or old man. I never understood the twisted code governing sex in the joint. Among the toughest and most macho guys, a homosexual relationship with a kid is winked at. In fact, there was a certain status to owning the prettiest kid in the joint. It didn't mean he was gay, and he'd kill you if you suggested he was. He was just doing what he had to do to survive. He'd get out and go back to his wife like it never happened. What happens in the joint stays in the joint. The kids played a dangerous game, however. They had their own social substructure in the joint, and they flirted and played the wheels off one against each other. Guys got stabbed over the ownership of a kid. Masturbation is a lot safer. Now the screws, guards to y'all, used to tiptoe down the cell block at night with a flashlight. It was a game with them, trying to catch a guy jerking off. One night a guard we all called Flashlight Freddy surprised a young inmate masturbating. He jumped out in front of the cell and clicked his flashlight on. "What are you doing?" he demanded. Without missing a beat, the young man fired back, "2 years, sir." Postscript, yeah, that inmate was me. Okay, that's the prison experience. Now, the book is basically divided into 3 sections. Even though it's called Blood, Sweat, and Tears, only about a third of it is about the band Blood, Sweat, and Tears. About a third of it takes place before I joined them, and a third takes place afterwards. And although I've just delved into some of the darker chapters of the book, it's not all like that, because my life has not been like that. There's been some real triumphs and some real happiness and some real rewards, and I made sure they're in there too. There's also a lot of misimpressions. You know, the press tends to distort things as years pass by. We all look back at Woodstock with these kind of rosy-colored glasses, love, peace, flowers, love beads. And there was a lot more to it than that, as the gentleman from the Star just pointed out. It was a tumultuous time, and there was more to Woodstock than just a bunch of stoned people and a lot of mud. There was a genuine movement and an idealism. So I'd like to give you, before I finish this and talk to Ben, about my memories of Woodstock, because it's been suggested that this would be relevant to this reading. I'm often asked about my memories of Woodstock. History has painted the festival in pastels like a Peter Max poster. 3 days of love, flowers, and peace. History has conveniently marginalized the anger that drove 600,000 people to march on a little town in upstate New York. Woodstock was the inevitable result of the outrage that swept the youth of America. It was primarily young people who were being brought home in body bags from Nam, and the flower-powered generation had had enough.